this is a long-living material. And as you say, vegans, once they understand I don't need to eat the meat, but I'm okay with using the leather as it's a good material.
Welcome to the episode 5 of Leathertainment podcast on the go. In this one, we're gonna look into the future of leather because we already talked about the legacy today, how things are done. But what about the long term or mid-term future of leather in the industry, in the market, for players in the leather space and for people who consumes leather? What do you think, Florian? What does it look like for the leather?
Yeah, it's a very interesting time that we are in, and I do see that we will need your help actually by going into the shops and asking actively for leather items. We are at a crossroad where we either go into a plastic world or we go into a world where we use and reuse material which are naturally grown. And leather is surely one of those, like cotton and wool and wood and other items coming from nature. And I think that is really important that you start to ask for those items. And that is where then we decide, are we going this way or are we going that way?
It's very important. Definitely, there's a huge part, I think, falling into you guys, the consumer, to be conscious, to make the right choice. But I think there is a pre-step before we can ask the help from the consumer, from the market. I think industry needs to do a much better job of telling the story, the beautiful story of leather, which we haven't been telling. I think that's part of the reason that all these misconceptions could take place, because there was a lack of information. And I think partially industry is responsible, and it falls onto us, people who worked in leather, who knows and lives this story. We got to get out there and tell. It's easier than ever with social media now. We can talk to millions just like this. It wasn't possible before, but unfortunately the industry is still with a traditional mindset, not really leveraging these tools. How do you think industry can take a more proactive approach to tell this story going forward so consumers can actually learn and start asking?
That's a very important point that you just mentioned, because the industry is such old and historic. And then you have very small artisanal tanneries doing leather, and they don't need or see the urge of changing anything or going out and talking about the good that they are doing. And I think we are looking now for a one voice for the industry. And we try to, as well, Smit Zoon is taking a leading role here, talking to partners and seeing what can we do and how can we align as an industry to get this one voice out, talking positively about leather. So we are happy that we have this talk with you now, or these episodes, to bring more awareness into the end consumers, but we will need to do more, and that needs financial funding. So we will need to look, where is the money coming from to talk about this. There's a thought of creating an own Netflix series or one episode or a documentary about leather to bring awareness to the end consumer, so that there's really this asking for, we want this. And I think this is what's missing for the moment. The brands feel comfortable by replacing naturally products by plastic. They are feeling comfortable by adding, even in fabric, more and more polyester. And the consumer is not complaining. So they go as far as the consumer goes until the consumer says, actually, I don't want this anymore. And this is what needs to happen. But this needs awareness at the end consumer. It needs to awakening to care about what do I have as a decision here, and what power do I have as a consumer. And as a consumer, I have the power to say, you know what, I'm leaving your shop because you have only plastic items or mixed items in fabric, which are a lot of polyester, but you don't have the natural product that I'm looking for, the 100% of linen, wool, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. I think it's great that you mentioned that Netflix documentary. It's kind of like a dream of mine to make something at that level so it reaches to the audience at scale. we've been watching more and more documentaries addressing this issue of we going for a dead end with consumerism and plastic piling up everywhere. There was beautiful, beautiful work done. I think this signals that it's the time all of us people are realizing the way is not the right direction we're going right now, and it's gonna end up not very good. And we're looking for an answer, a solution, and a new direction, a shift. So the time is right. People are ready for understanding what's right, what's good to do, because all of us want to do the right thing for ourselves, for the earth and the future. But the message needs to get out there. I think there is a little bit more than a collective effort to the industry. Like individually, the brands, the craftsmen, the people can take their phone and tell this story. Like it's that easy. Like that was the inspiration for me to do, and it got a good response because people really wanted to understand leather. And that's, to me, it's the proof that the message has an audience. It just needs to be told. So I think industry, I invite first the industry individually start taking action. You don't need to wait for a collective effort or finance, or just go out there and tell the story, because we have a beautiful story.
Yeah, that's something that I do as well in my everyday job, where I speak in schools, I lecture at schools, design universities, and it's interesting to then get feedback from the industry where those students go into, that they are keen to use leather again because they understood the positiveness of leather, and they are asking for it because they got curious and they say, actually, this is a material that I want to use. I understood the circularity of it and the positive aspect and the long durability that it brings.
Yeah, it's perfect to see that when we start talking about it, it immediately creates this pull action, and that's how it's going to start spreading. Like it's a remembrance of the goodness of leather. It's not a news, it's something we have forgotten. And the industries produce designers, and they go into the car companies becoming the choosers of materials, and leather starts to come back to life because that's the right choice when people start remembering it. I'm very excited to see that shift and that evolution happening in the short term. And I have some interesting examples, even from vegan friends that watched my videos, reached out to me, sent an email. I'm vegan, and after watching so many of your videos, now I understand. I want to use leather because these animals are going to be killed because billions of people eat meat, and now it's a responsible act to use this as a material, which is durable, instead of creating demand for plastic. And I asked them, "Are you open to having a podcast discussion?" Like they're fully open to have this realization and approach from a fully vegan lifestyle standpoint. I think the story resonates once it's remembered. We just need to start telling it.
Yeah, and I have another story to add to what you're just saying. We had a vegan shoe brand launched vegan with plastic material. And then they realized, and the feedback from the customer buying those was, oh my God, but your shoes are not long lasting. Now they say, we want to offer a leather line because this is a long living material. And as you say, vegans, once they understand, I don't need to eat the meat, but I'm okay with using the leather as it's a good material. And it's a very interesting shift that we might observe on the longer run, where vegans are open to actually use and embrace leather as a good product because it's environmentally friendly, and it's a waste that it's transformed into something very long lasting and has a positive energy and brings comfort.
Absolutely. I think it's in the short term, it's industry telling the story and consumers demanding this information from the brands, demanding these materials. I want to choose wool. Next time I'm going to buy a shoe, next time I'm going to buy a bag or wallet, I ask what's the material. And if it's not leather, walk away, but not just walk away. Say why you're walking away, because you don't offer the materials that I'm looking for. I want the cotton, I want the wood, and I want the wool and the leather. So they know, and every business exists to make sales and profits. They have to listen. They can't ignore you. It's a
Yeah, and
powerful.
you remember that as well when in our one of our first podcasts you mentioned this one shoe going to the same shoe repair shop since 60 years. So we have two pairs of shoes here on the table. One is a pair of shoes with leather sole and the other one which is a traditional sneaker. So the question is, where can you repair? Where can you repair a sneaker, even though it's made from leather, which is already good, that the shoe upper is made of leather, but the shoe lower is brought to the shoe in a way that you cannot replace a sole. So I think that's a challenge as well for the sneaker industry to come up with solutions and ideas that we can change those shoe soles or ideally go back to the traditional leather one that you can repair and replace and it doesn't leave any microplastic while you're walking.
Right. That's beautiful things we're moving towards. It just needs a little bit of remembrance. And I think if we do all these things in the short term, I feel like there is a hopeful increase and comeback. Leather being cool again, leather being the right choice for people, easy choice uh, in the midterm or long term. How do you see that? If we do all these things, how do you see leather coming back to human life?
We see already some actions happening now. When you look on catwalks, we see that there is more leather being shown. We see more garments being produced with leather. We see more jackets being produced with leather, but as well leather bags are shown and leather shoes, of course. And as well, the furniture industry is reconsidering and bringing leather back because it has a lot of advantages. If you leave the leather as it has a cooling function in summer and it has a warming function in winter. So it's very interesting to look what leather is doing and how versatile it is for the end consumer and how much comfort it brings. So on a midterm and long-term run, I do hope that leather will have its comeback and that people understand that vegan materials very often were plastic and that was misleading information. And a lot of people are now disappointed to understand actually this was plastic. And with this, they go back and look for the real material. So I do have hope, but I hope it's happening fast enough because there are some industry partners, because of the consumption having dropped by 50%, that they are close to bankruptcy. So we might lose as well on the way to this awakening partners where we will need them in the future.
That's true, because it's really not an easy craft to go back into the business and start creating beautiful items. These businesses and artisans have been accumulating knowledge, tools, materials, recipes, and if they disappear, then it's going to be hard to bring them back.
Correct.
It's sad. Well, it's great to hear that there is hope in the future, being leather being the cool again, coming back to the choice. How about the very strong forces in the life today with we're producing fast fashion, cheap, quick, and it's addictive. They're based on giving you a pleasure hit. Like every month you want to buy something and then it shows up at your door, you open it,
And you're excited to have
Yeah.
a new item.
yeah, you feel good for a short period of time and then you forgot and the next thing. It's not a sustainable approach. It's not real happiness. It's a pleasure cycle. And it works great for the fast fashion profit-based businesses, but for the well-beings of a human, I think the more important thing is being happy in the long run. It's the serotonin, it's not the dopamine. So how do we personally, like it's a challenging thing, living in this world bombarded with this kind of advertising. How do we at individual level fight with these forces where leather is going to be a little bit more expensive than those things at the face value, but if you consider how long you're going to use it, but it requires a little bit of thinking, calculation, and conscious choice. How can an individual bring himself back to herself back to that conscious thinking rather than making that quick and easy pleasure choice?
Yeah, I think that is a very important point that you're mentioning here. And what we will probably need to do is another podcast on how do I care for my leather products, because that is as well something when you have your shoe and you want to maintain it the way it is now, that it is absolutely spotless and beautiful. You want to have it in your hand and you need to take some attention to it and bring attention to it and caress it with love and bring it to the shine that it has when you bought it. And I think this is very important that we understand that slow fashion is this new term, and leather is for sure one of the slow fashion items. And what is as well important to understand it, as leather is more expensive at the purchase. Yes, it takes probably longer to be able to pay for one item, but with this you as well you buy the guarantee that it will long last, but it will need your love and attention as well to make it that long and to remain beautiful. And I think this is really important that we as well bring out this remembrance of how was shoes be taken care of in the past, how was leather seats, chairs, furniture, handbags, how did we take care of them before? Because in the past, a person owned one pair of shoe, maybe. Right. Yeah. Now there's a saying, have three so that they can rest and they can breathe for 2 days. And then you go back into the cycle of 3 leather shoes. The beauty of leather shoes is that actually you typically don't sweat in them. So it has amazing features by nature, which help us to be healthy as well have an healthy environment.
Absolutely. So it requires some effort, conscious thinking versus the automatic, desired
replace and next.
Yeah.
I think we need to be a little bit more cautious in our decisions. It's like meat eating.
Right.
Everyday meat eating, we know it's not healthy, and it's not healthy for the environment either. So reduce our meat consumption and be cautious and be more careful of where it's coming from, how the animal was treated, and can we buy it with a good consciousness? So less meat, but maybe more expensive because it's coming from certified organic farms, or then and with this as well to say, I buy one leather item instead of 5 sneakers or 10 sneakers.
Absolutely. That's the idea we start getting comfortable with. Hopefully that's the new cool and trend to see in the consumer market. Again, we need your help to realize and remember the virtue in this kind of thinking, to go to that future that's better for everybody. And I just want to go to the very long-term future that I have a almost like a science fiction kind of thinking in the future of leather, but that example may help us think when we have that kind of contrasting scenario in the thing. Like I listen to a lot of things, and there's this from the future being called Bashar says that human beings will evolve into a species at some point, like Homo sapiens goes to next level, which is vibrating at a higher love standpoint. The wars don't exist in the world of that state, and where we don't need nutritions like meat, where you need to kill the other beings, even vegetables. Like it's a fully symbiotic relationship. So now it's completely science fiction sounding thing, and there's no timeline for this to happen. I don't think we're going to be around for this, but maybe 500 years later. But if that happens, thinking a world like that we don't need to kill an animal, then there's no leather. And it's totally fine. It's completely a different world. But as long as we are not there and we are eating animals, then we have the bonus, the material that just out of respect, we use that for the long-term use of anything we can make out of leather.
Yeah. And it's growing every day. And that is really something that some brands are ignorant, some consumers are ignorant to it. So that's as well part of the remembrance, like this is there. When we eat meat, there is leather. And we can disregard it, but then it creates another problem in the waste management. Or we use it because leather is as well a storage for CO2. And the world is looking into how can we capture CO2? And it's fascinating to understand that for the moment, the leather that we produce is going into landfill or in a burning plant at the end of life. So the CO2 is released back into the atmosphere. So we did not win anything. But with new technologies, we are able now to create compost or fertilizer out of the leather at the end of life. And with this, we capture the CO2 and it goes into the soil where it's urgently needed. Plus, we discovered that the leather is so rich in nutrition that plants will grow 20% better with leather in the soil, in the humus, than compared with artificial fertilizer. So it's very interesting to understand as well future of leather. Right. Not going that far, we know that in 60 years the world is running out of the resources for artificial fertilizer. So what does that mean for a vegan nutrition? What does that mean for our global nutrition if we are running out of artificial fertilizer? So by doing things now right and making leather compostable or being able to transform it into fertilizer at the end of life, we are able to solve a problem that humanity will face in 60 years.
That's fascinating. I learned this news after meeting you, the zoology, the new thinning technology that makes the soil better when it's in the compost. And I'm very happy to see that industry is trying these all new ways to make the future of leather better every day. I think it's a good segue for the next episode where we're gonna talk about the sustainability and the environmental impact of the leather industry. I think this was a great projection of future of leather. Again, thank you for all your insights, and I can't wait to discuss the next episode with you.
Thank you, Volkan. And thank you. Ask for leather.
Absolutely.